So it's a lot easier just to go with the kilogram as the fundamental unit or the base unit for the SI system instead of the gram. So it's all about measuring human beings and then expanding upon that. So it can be a bit confusing, but if you can keep that in mind, the difference between metric and SI, that's the real basis for it. So to address this, the measuring system based upon the metric system developed, and that system became known in France as Système International, okay, or the international system as the English-speaking people call it, better known as the SI. It's called SI because of Système International. It's not IS because it's a universal thing, so France wins on the naming of it. As a result, the bases for the SI system are as follows. Meter for M is still used for length. Second for time is still being used for that. But kilograms are now used for mass since fewer quantities of kilograms are needed to measure humans. And liters are used but are considered derived units and not fundamental units. So the fundamental unit for the liter is actually based upon the meter cubed. Okay, so that's basically the set of rules that the SI has established based upon the metric system. The genius of the metric system in SI is the set of prefixes associated with the base units. Now this is where the rubber hits the road for the SI. And this is where you come into play right now, because you need to know the basic prefixes that we will and eventually later on be using. So all the prefixes are based upon a power 10. So we don't really need a calculator, but I still see students use calculators when dividing by 100 or multiplying by 1,000, which just drives me crazy, but you know, what are you going to do? You know, it's like a crutch, and I'm afraid they're going to fall over on their faces and they don't have their calculators to figure that out, but whatever, you know. It saves time if you can remember this, but whatever. Every prefix is based upon a power 10, and often the exponential power is a multiple of 3. So what I mean by that is, well, we have centi is what most people know, like centimeter, centiliter, centigram. Centi means 100. The number associated with centi is 100. Now, how do we know that? Well, the best way to remember that is, because some people struggle with these prefixes, centi should be a really easy one to remember because there are 100 cents in a dollar. And there's 100 years in a century. And in the Roman days, they had a centurion who commanded 100 men in a Roman army. So, if you ever watch movies about old Rome, you hear the word centurion used a lot, and those were soldiers who were in charge of 100 other men. So, it's a Latin word, meaning 100 cents. If a meter is divided into 1,000 equal parts, small little parts, then each one of those is considered a millimeter. So milli means 1,000 parts in a whole, as in the millennium, which is 1,000 years, and a millipede, which supposedly has 1,000 legs. Actually, it's like 760, but I guess whoever called a millipede got tired of counting after 760. So, okay, close enough, 1,000. So here are the small prefixes, all lowercase and less than the base value. C for centi, M for milli. Now we already have a lowercase m, so here comes micro, which means there's 1,000,000 parts in one, 1,000,000 micrometers in one, or micrometers as some people say. So we use the Greek letter mu. It's like a kitty made this up. Meow. And it's basically, you can see it's kind of like a U with a tail in front. So like imagine the cat walking this way, and it has the tail behind it as it's going to the right. I don't know if that helps, but you'll see my drawings as we go through this. And nano is 9, so 10 to the 9th. So as you can see, 9, 6, 3 are all powers of 10 in multiples of 3. 3, 6, 9. And the next one is the pico, which is the 12, and the femto, which is the 15, and the atto, which is 18. So we all work like numbers of 3 once we get past the centi. Now, honestly, centi is no longer really recognized by SI, but we use it all the time, so I'm going to expect you to know that as well. If you have multiples of the base unit. Like if you take a meter stick and lay it end to end to end 1,000 times, that is what is known as a kilometer. And we use, and that means 1,000 times bigger than the base unit, in this case a meter, but it could be a kilogram, it could be a kilosecond, it could be, kilo whatever, kiloliter. The kilo means 1,000. And so that means we're going to use capital letters to represent these to emphasize the fact that it's big. We use the lowercase to emphasize the fact that they are small. Okay, keep that distinction. Kilo is 1,000 or 10 to the third. M is mega, as in megabucks. You see that advertised all the time, means millions of bucks. 10 to the sixth million. G is giga, which means billion, 10 to the ninth, and T is tera, which is 10 to the 12th. So those of you who are familiar with computers know that a hard drive is now holding a lot of terabytes, and they're getting ready to go up to the next level, which I believe is exabytes. But we're not going to do exo, we're going to stick with tera. So, the next quiz that you have that is based on this information is based on the symbols and numbers related to these prefixes and the next section, which deals with English units. The other beauty to the SI system is the fact that these prefixes are affixed to all base units. So, milli means the same for grams, seconds, meters, liters, whatever. It all means 1,000 of the smaller ones equals 1 of the base unit. And that is such genius. And if you want to go from one to the other, which we are going to work on in this chapter, you really don't need a calculator for that. It's the stinking English prefixes and base units that really give us issues, because they are not based on 10. So your assignment is to study the prefixes. We're going to have another quiz where you have to memorize. I'm sorry, but again, this is important. We're going to get most of the memorization out early on, and then we'll get into the non-regurgitation part of the program after this chapter. So, study the prefixes, quiz on them the following week, or 2 weeks after this is released on Saturday. Have fun.